Okay, good evening everyone and welcome to the Tuesday, May 12th meeting of the Newcastle Town Board. The town has been in executive session and I'd like to ask for a motion to open the work session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are going to start off our work session by discussing the issue of battery energy storage systems here in the town of Newcastle. The town has been under a moratorium for these systems. We are currently in our third 6-month moratorium. We have held 3 public hearings on the matter. We opened the public hearing on February 10th. It continued on March 24th, and it continued on April 28th, and closed with the record left open till May 1st for written comments. So we've had the opportunity to hear from the public for almost 3 months. Initially, the issue was brought to us by our fire department, and our staff had the opportunity to look at the issue and give us some background, and we ended up with the proposed legislation that we'll be discussing today. So I'm going to let our Director of Planning, Sabrina Charney Hall, run us through the background and how we got to today.
Good evening. Good evening. Testing. Good evening. In February 2025, that's when you guys first established the moratorium, which prohibited the review of battery energy storage systems within the town. Town staff, the part-time fire inspector or fire marshal, the building inspector, recovery agency NYSERDA was looking at. We initially used NYSERDA's model legislation to create permissive legislation for the town of Newcastle. Not only did we look at meeting with the emergency services fire personnel, but we started talking with our neighbors as well who were looking at what they were doing. We also did a deep dive into our land use and looking at the predominance of residential land use in our town. We're 97% zoned for residential use, 3% is commercial use. The board decided to flip the permissive legislation on its side and go more towards a prohibition. So the legislation that was put out for public comment was a prohibitive legislation which banned tiers 1, 2, and 3. Based on public comments, all the comments that we received, the board then decided to allow tier 1 battery energy storage systems separate and apart from solar system installation, and also wanted better definitions. So we took the NYSERDA definitions that we had initially included in our permissive legislation and incorporated them into the most recent draft of the BESS legislation that is before you tonight for consideration. Thank you, Sabrina.
You're welcome. So like I said, we've had extensive public comments on this, and this is, we've listened to those comments, we've read the comments, and so the board has been mostly in listening mode, and this is now our opportunity to have a discussion. We'll make our statements and, we can have a discussion amongst ourselves, and the vote will come later at the meeting. But I would like to start off by making a few comments from myself, not from the board. We'll each have our own opinions here and then we'll sort of coalesce. But I'd like to start off by acknowledging that the town of Newcastle has always been in a leadership position regarding climate action. And we are very proud of that status. We were the first municipality to pledge as a climate smart community in 2008, the first in Westchester County to receive that designation. We achieved silver certification under the New York State Climate Smart Communities program. We adopted a climate action plan in 2011 to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and we've committed to looking at a new one in our 2026 goals. We've approved many clean energy projects, I won't go through all of them, through NYSERDA grants with the help of the SAB and the Climate Smart Communities Task Force. And BEST technology has come before us as part of that climate action plan. So I'd like to take more of an umbrella look at this. The entire goal of climate action is to protect our natural environment. We want to protect our natural resources, care for the fragile ecosystems, and maintain their resiliency. We want to preserve natural habitats and the biodiversity that keeps our planet alive. And reducing reliance on fossil fuels is one way to achieve that goal. So why has this been such a big controversy? The problem is that for the very first time, we're faced with a climate action initiative that has presented us with a threat to the ultimate goal, where we have technology that has been posing a risk to the very environment that we're trying to protect. We are told that those risks have been significantly reduced, and we appreciate that very much. This has been a rapidly changing and evolving technology. But the risks, for anyone who's just tuning in who is not aware, I'll go over those a little bit. We have seen the hazards of lithium-ion energy storage systems posing serious safety concerns and public health and ecological risks. We have batteries that overheat and catch fire. Those fires cannot be extinguished with water. They must be left to consume themselves, to burn out on their own. These fires can be caused by extreme weather, heat, or water, or malfunctions. During the fires, the systems emit toxic gases, creating toxic plumes which can have a radius of 3 to sometimes 5 miles. They emit hydrogen fluoride, hydrogen methane, ethylene, carbon monoxide, among others. Poisonous substances have leaked into the ground from these systems and water runoff. These include PFAS chemicals, which are essential components of lithium-ion batteries. The fires can burn for days and sometimes weeks and have caused evacuations and shelter-in-place orders. And the systems are built to last for decades with unresolved issues of battery degradation. So we now experience extreme heat, droughts, we've had burn bans and wildfires. Just last month, Orange County had a high fire danger warning and was under a burn ban. I'm not quite sure if they're still under one. You'll remember the recent Orange County Jennings Creek wildfire, which burned for 2 weeks last year and burned over 5,300 acres. There was a huge fire last year in Long Island in the Pine Barrens region, which burned about 400 acres, and that was from simple embers from someone who was making backyard s'mores. So I can only wonder what kind of fires would be unleashed by a burning BESS system that is left to burn out for days. We are told that BESS systems and BESS technology is now safe. We have state-of-the-art systems with very low risk of fires, enhanced standards that exceed all prior requirements and are subject to third-party review. So I'll remind everyone that last December, which was only a few months ago, December 2025, there was a fire in Warwick from a lithium-ion system. It burned from December 19th through December 21st. There was severe weather and possible water infiltration, which caused the malfunction. There were extended response timelines, continuous air monitoring. Hydrogen cyanide was found to be in the air. And this followed 2 back-to-back incidents that took place in Warwick in 2023, which were also weather-related water infiltration. One of those burned for 2 days. This in 2023, caused the governor to convene an interagency fire working group, which culminated in the 2025 Fire Safety Act. So the 2025 fire was deemed to be a fire from a facility that was unauthorized. So people are saying that we really shouldn't be worried about this because it was an unauthorized facility. The reason the facility was unauthorized was that the operator did not provide for certain inspections, and they said this was because this was a state-of-the-art BESS system that exceeded all latest requirements. The operator was Convergent, and they said that following the 2023 fires, all battery systems in Warwick were replaced with new units meeting enhanced standards that underwent third-party testing and review. This was all in an article from December 22nd, 2025, from News 12. You can read all about it. There have been many fires in the past. I don't want to take too long going through all of them, but on January 2025, a BESS fire broke out at the Moss Landing site in Monterey County in California. There was a 24-hour evacuation with about 1,200 residents evacuated. On May 15th, 2024, there was a Gateway Energy Storage Facility in San Diego that experienced a BESS fire with continued flare-ups for 7 days. In July 2023, there was a fire in Lyme. It was a solar farm fire, and so on and so forth. We've been told that there have been no recent fires. However, there is a BESS failure incident database showing that in a recent 1-year period from January 2025 through January 2026, there have been 13 fires from lithium-ion installations, from substations to solar BESS combinations to commercial, to industrial buildings, data centers, and power plants. There have been 21 fires if you count the 2 years between January 2026 and 2024. The fire safety group I mentioned before, the interagency fire safety group that came up with the 2025 Fire Safety Code, is something that is cited as a reason why we shouldn't be too worried now about these systems, that they are now under the purview of this new code. I have a summary of that code that was given to me. It was summarized to me by the NYSERDA Clean Energy Advisor. And I will tell you that each of these points indicate mitigation measures. They don't really indicate a decrease in the likelihood of the harm. There are about 7 points in her summary. The new code requires central station monitoring of all BESS fire detection systems, and they ensure prompt notification. That is not a reduction of harm, a reduction of likelihood of the harm. They implement mandatory industry-funded independent peer review for these installations. They require the facilities to have an emergency response plan, and they provide for site-specific training. They extend safety signage requirements. They eliminate exemptions for utility-owned systems. And there are regular industry-funded special inspections that are required. So all of these are mitigation measures to manage the harm. They don't reduce the likelihood of the harm or the severity of the consequences. Considering all of these risks, you might wonder why there is so much pressure for us right now to consider these systems. So there are 2 reasons that I see for these pressures. There are political interests and corporate interests that are coming to bear. On the political end, we have the New York 2019 Climate Act, which commits New York State to reducing emissions by 40% by 2030. This is 40% below 1990 levels, and by 85% by 2050. This has proven to be a very difficult lift. I know that the governor is trying to adjust the standards and is getting a lot of pushback from that. As far as the corporate interests, we know that there is a very high demand for renewable energy that has led to huge expansions in the market for these BESS installations. There have been significant investments in energy markets, and We've had the use of energy arbitrage to maximize returns. So the rise of there's also the rise of energy intensive facilities such as data centers. So there are huge corporate pressures as well as political pressures that have come to bear. When we look at our town, our reality is that this town is 97% residential. A large percentage of our town consists of parkland and preserves with fragile ecosystems. We have significant areas of wetlands and watershed areas, and a large part of our town is in the east of Hudson watershed area. We've looked at the towns around us, but every town is different. We are a town with very little to no industrial output. Our industrial zones are actually in very sensitive areas. We've got one in Millwood where we have a water treatment plant. We've got one on Joan Corwin Way, which also contains a preschool, the school bus depot, our DPW equipment. It's close to the Metro North train station, the Sawmill River Parkway, and either of those will be close to a school, a residential area, or sensitive infrastructure. We have a 100% volunteer fire department. A multi-day best fire event would overwhelm our volunteer fire departments and strain manpower and possibly impact recruitment. We've heard from our residents, we've heard from a few people outside of our town, and we've heard from those in the sustainability field. Some of our residents who commented in favor are in the best business. I won't say much more about that, but they are in the business in a professional capacity. So I ask for anyone who makes any further comments on these systems to disclose their professional interests in such. We've had requests to extend this moratorium to keep considering this issue, but moratoriums are temporary in nature and we're actually not allowed to extend a moratorium indefinitely. We have been asked to create a task force to evaluate these applications for larger systems. But in my view, convening a task force to consider tier 2 and 3 is really abdicating our responsibility to our residents. And so I would say that my conclusions from all of this, and I know this has been very long-winded, but our ultimate goal is to protect our natural environment. And these risks are asking us to trade one environmental harm for another. And the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions should not mean that we're displacing one environmental risk and substituting a long-term, more global environmental problem for a new localized problem with immediate risks to local communities. So I view this as, I believe that environmental progress should reduce harm and not simply relocate the harm. So what I would recommend, what I would propose is that we pass the legislation as written, but know that nothing is really truly ever written in stone. We know that the technology is changing rapidly. We know that we have new best technology under development. I believe we should await the results of these new installations, and I don't believe that a 97% residential town should be the guinea pig for new technology. And I do look forward to a time when these systems are more reliable and can be shown to be safe, consistently safe. At some point in the near future, I believe we may want to allow tier 2 systems. I don't believe that time is now. We are mostly single family homes, we produce no heavy industrial output, and I don't believe that we should take on that risk. But I do believe we should remain flexible and open to new information. And I would recommend that we convene a new climate smart task force that can continue to study the matter, and that we should remain flexible. So I know that when we get to our resolutions, I will be voting in favor of the legislation as written. And at this point, I'd like to give the opportunity to my fellow board members to comment on this. Start with Holly, our deputy town supervisor.
Thanks, Vicky. I had a whole thing written, but honestly, you captured most of what I was gonna say. So I'm not gonna go through the risks and things like that. So I'm just gonna kind of hit some high points for me. As we've gone through this, I have never lost focus on my support for our goals around climate change and clean energy, sustainability, and reducing strain on the power grid. But the question is, how do we implement best systems in our community? So I had to think about, what is our community? It's residential. There's schools. There's not industrial uses here. So what's really appropriate are residential sized BESS systems, which are the tier 1 systems. I think adding the ability to have BESS systems tier 1 without solar is a great step that we need to take. And I do hope that these improvements in safety and the evolving nature of this technology will be evident in the near future. So, I'm also going to be a yes vote on the legislation as it's written, but that is not to say that I don't support what we can do for our grid and our climate, that I don't value the input from our planning board and SAB. I thought about that very hard. But on balance, I think the right thing for our community is to pass the legislation as written, not because we're afraid of it, but because we're not ready in this particular community. And I'm optimistic, so I encourage this board and future boards to continue monitoring these developments and revisit the legislation when appropriate.
Okay. In order of seniority on the board, I will give it to Ally.
So I appreciate every resident who submitted a public or written comment regarding draft law 60-430 related to restrictions on battery.
Can't hear you through the mic.
Sorry. Battery energy storage systems. Thank you for engaging in the process. After thoughtful consideration, I believe these large-scale systems pose a real risk to public health and safety, as well as serious and consequential environmental risks to our community and our surrounding neighbors. I don't believe these systems belong in residential communities at this time. Holly and Vicky made a lot of salient points that I don't want to spend too much time on, other than to say the two largest BESS fires that have occurred in 2025 in Arizona and California. The 2025 fire in California at Moss Landing led to the evacuation, as Vicky said, to over 1,200 residents. While that system was old, it highlighted the importance of adequate inspection resources as well as disaster preparedness measures. In June 2023, there was a fire at a Convergent operated facility in Warwick. There was another one in Warwick in December of 2025. And subsequent reporting and statements from village officials revealed that the system that caught fire in December should not have been operational at the time of the fire. The officials identified 3 reasons that materially changed how the incident was understood. There was a lack of required authorization, unauthorized system energization, which means batteries were reportedly energized and fully charged without formal notification or authorization from the village, and there was limited municipal verification. That point is most important, as I understand BESS and Newcastle. Building, permitting, operating, and managing these systems require the resources of a large city and a professional paid fire department. This allows for inspection and enforcement of codes and regulations. Newcastle does not have inspection resources or expertise in these systems to ensure that private, for-profit companies follow the rules. The cost and resources required to manage private, for-profit companies would be a burden on us, the Newcastle taxpayer. The Chappaqua Millwood fire departments do not have the staff, the equipment to mitigate a fire or manage a disaster should one occur at one of these facilities. Our fire department and ambulance are volunteers. What message are we sending to our dedicated volunteers if we do not heed professional opinion and allow their safety to be put at risk by allowing systems like this in town. Finally, we had public comment regarding UL 9540 and UL 9540A. Those are testing standards for battery, fire propagation, and safety certification. As proof, these systems are regulated, while ignoring the fact that the National Fire Protection Association is currently requesting the UL to update their standard or to consider a different standard from a different organization. It's intentionally misleading to cite the ULs and not mention this fact. According to the NFPA, the standards do not currently require satisfactory large-scale fire testing. So, in layman's terms, as it currently stands, the UL 9540A can be passed, meaning you get the permission to build the large-scale BESS facility, without ever producing a fire and testing its results, which is exactly what the manufacturers of these systems want. The systems are never adequately stressed or tested. So, while Newcastle prides itself on being stewards of the environment and supporting environmentally friendly initiatives, which we all are in favor of, we're not a social or science experiment. We have carefully weighed the benefits of large-scale BESS systems with the risks, and I believe the risks to the community and the environment outweigh the benefits. As such, I'm in full support of banning large-scale tier 2 and 3 systems.
Thank you, Holly. Jen?
It's hard to follow you three. But firstly, I want to remark on and thank all of our residents who have shared knowledge and insights with us on this legislation. I'm always reminded with so much community engagement how informed our constituency is. It's very impressive, and it's been good and helpful to listen to everyone. It's also been helpful to hear what communities around us are doing, and also to attend webinars with experts on BESS applications in New York State and what the benefits and concerns are. One critical thing I've learned serving Newcastle for the past couple of years is that we are a community committed to protecting the environment and sustainability. Everyone up on this dais is committed to that. And we are situated in sensitive environmental areas. We are both mandated by New York State, but also choose to utilize the safest approaches to protecting our natural resources in numerous ways. There is a strong argument that BESS at all tiers are part of the future of clean energy. But what I am clear on from the leading experts in fire safety is that protocol and trainings in maintaining these utilities is still a work in progress and still in development, particularly for volunteer fire departments. I am not comfortable making a fire chief in our community uncomfortable. And I am also not comfortable situating large-scale BESS utilities in residential areas. I've heard our residents loud and clear on this and agree that this is not something I can foist upon residents at this time. I am comfortable with Tier 1 at this time, as it has been defined, and I remain open to learning more as technology and protection protocols develop in the years to come. And again, I thank residents for all their input, and I am a yes vote on this legislation.
Thank you. Eric?
Yeah, I'm not gonna be too redundant. For me, a couple things is I know that this process left a lot of people upset. I'm the only person who could say that at the start of this process, I was on that side of the dais and I'm on this side of the dais. So I think I've got a kind of unique perspective in that way. I wanna thank the Sustainability Advisory Board, the Conservation Board, the Planning Board, everyone who came out. We made changes to this legislation because of the feedback that those advisory boards gave us. And if we could do this again, I think looping them in earlier in the process would have been a way I think we could have gone about this. I think we still would have gotten to the same place. But that was one of my big takeaways from this. I'm not sure I agree with the why. I think this is about the risks, right? We're all aligned. This is about the risk. We heard so many people come for the past few months talking about the risk. We had a very specific plot of land that they were all talking about. And everyone here on this stage today has talked about the risk and why that's the concern. So I'm not sure if I agree with some of the political stuff that was mentioned and some of the commercial needs. I don't think that's necessarily what's going on here. I think this is about the stuff exactly that Ally you were describing, is people do not want these in their backyards. There's no need for a tier 3, there's no feasible need for something like that in our neighborhood, and the risks outweigh any potential gain, which quite frankly, in our neighborhood, there isn't one with a tier 3. And I think that the biggest takeaway for me with all of this is, something I've been talking about for a long time is, and Vicky, what you touched on tonight, I'm really glad you said this, is getting the Climate Smart Task Force back up. Updating our climate action plan, which, as you mentioned, was made in 2011 and has 1 year, 5 year, and 10-year goals, and it was 15 years ago. So I think we can show how dedicated we are to everything we're talking about by making some of these things move forward. I'm reminded of this line from Elizabeth Warren 5-6 years ago where they were asking about straws, right? And she's like, what do you think the government should be telling us we should be doing, not using plastic straws? She said, we're spending too much time debating about plastic straws. And she laughs it off. She says, the fossil fuel industry doesn't want us talking. They want us talking about straws. We're spending too much time talking about this best battery thing, and we need to be looking at ways our community actually can be making an impact here, and that starts again with that climate action plan. So I'm really excited about us. I know that's been part of our annual goal. Holly, I know that we had the SAB here a couple weeks ago and we were talking to them about it. I think that's the next step, and that's where I want to hit the ground running, starting, let's get this wrapped up. Let's follow the lead of Yorktown and others, and let's start doing the things we can actually do that make a difference.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I just want to end by talking about a recollection I have about a comment that a resident made at our last public hearing, and I think she was alluding to the Conservation Board's Conservation Corner in the newsletter, where they talk about what is going on in the environment, and that the turtles are coming out and the frogs are coming out now, be careful when you're driving. And she said, this is a community that cares so much about the environment. We care, and she spoke so passionately, she said, we care about every turtle, every frog that comes out, and why would we consider these systems when we are a community that cares so much about our environment? So I just want to leave you with that, because that's what I end up thinking about. It's funny, the things that you remember. So I want to reiterate that we are actually retaining our leadership status, because we're identifying the real challenges, we're identifying the harms, and we are demanding better. So we will continue, this is to be continued, we'll see what we come up with the Climate Smart Task Force. And so to be continued, but we will vote on this particular legislation. Looks like we will vote yes when it comes to the town board meeting. Okay, great. Everyone else all set?
Mhm.
Anyone else down here want to advise us any further?
Nothing further.
Done. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go to the next topic, which is our MFRC zone. This is the multifamily residential Chappaqua zone, which is in our downtown area. I will give the floor to Sabrina and also Lino to introduce this legislation and talk about why we are talking about it. We did bring this up at a public meeting a year ago. And so we've changed the parameters.
So just to remind everybody, about a year ago, this was brought up as a work session discussion in an attempt to try and clarify inconsistencies and conflicts within the multifamily residential Chappaqua zoning legislation. We have gone back to the drawing board since then and kind of looked at how we can best revise and solve some of those conflicts and be consistent with the way the community has developed today. Before you, there is what you have been discussing is a draft law that does address the inconsistencies and kind of the anomalies in the legislation. The first being the conflict regarding development coverage. In some instances of this code, it required maximum development and building coverages, and in other sections it did not. So to be consistent with the underlying business retail zoning district, which this applies to, you have directed that you would not require that building coverage threshold. In addition, the MFRC initially established a 50-foot setback, front yard setback. And again, looking at the street that's out there today, and the majority of the buildings are located within 10 feet, which is what is the requirement of the business retail zoning district, you've decided to reduce that requirement to 10 feet rather than 50 feet. Another change that had been made is you wanted to emphasize that the MFRC legislation is not applicable within the business retail parking district. It is only applicable to the business retail zoning district, and that's very important. One last.
Sorry to interrupt, but can you describe where that is going along the hill on King
Sure,
Street?
it really extends just beyond the South Greeley and Lower King Street commercial areas, at about, I'd say just by the Historical Society, it turns into business retail zoning district, which goes up to Highland in one area and Bischoff in another area. There's also a cluster of BR zoning up at the top of King Street where Talbot's, the mobile station, Quaker Hill Tavern exist.
Right,
And there's also BR over in Millwood too, that this would apply.
but we were careful to make sure that this does not include not Lower King Street, but the lower half of where the men's tailor shop is.
That is zone business retail
That's
parking.
business retail all the way through Le Jardin and the plaza of the Le Jardin restaurant.
Correct, that's all
So
business retail
That's
parking.
business retail parking, which is not going to be included in this legislation.
Correct, it's
Because we
only
wanna
applying-
retain that retail.
It is only applying to the business retail zoning districts that exist today. And there's mapping available online for anybody.
Right, and I just wanna make sure that the map does reflect that. And if
It-
it doesn't,
yes,
we'll
the
have
map
to
does.
change the map. Oh.
No, the map absolutely reflects that. One last change that you decided to make was reducing the applicable lot size. As it is written right now, this provision, the location of a multifamily residential development would only apply to lots of 1 acre or greater. Given the average size of a majority of the properties or actually most except for maybe 5 or 6 properties, everything is less than an acre. So you have decided to look at a quarter of an acre or 10,890 square feet as a minimum lot size to apply the MFRC designation to. And that sums up where you currently are with examination of this legislation and resolving the conflicts and inconsistencies.
Yeah, just by way of background, MFRC is an overlay, right? So it's an overlay that would go over the BRP, not applicable, just a BR, right? So it basically would allow someone who would want to utilize this overlay to do residential with certain bonuses, right? But it's very limited in terms of what those bonuses are and how they can be utilized. Otherwise, if you're not using the overlay under MFRC, in order to do residential in the BRP, you'd have to have retail below, residential on top. What the MFRC does, if they utilizing this overlay, you forego the retail and you're allowed to do just residential. But again, in terms of it's not this prolific density that you're increasing. So again, I'm oversimplifying, but let's say you have a current lot in that overlay zone that allows for 2 units, right? Utilizing the incentives that are set forth in MFRC, you may get maybe 1 additional, making it 3, but no more than 4, which is 100% of what you are permitted as of right by law. So again, you have to look at how they are looking at what incentives, and the incentives are set forth in the FRC. But in no instance can you have more than double than what's allowed. So if you get 2 units on a piece of parcel, assuming all the other criteria are met, the max you can get is 4. Would that be correct?
Correct.
And also you maintain the height
You
maintain
you
the
can't change
maintain
height,
height.
right,
Change
height
the
is not
height.
changing, height's staying the
and
same,
the 3 stories you maintain.
correct, but to echo what Sabrina was saying, in terms of the metrics that are being adjusted, you're really just acknowledging what's there today, right? So there are being, for example, when I was looking at this, I think I had 50-foot setbacks, there are no 50-foot setbacks in that area. When I drive up and down whenever I'm here, you don't see a 50-foot setback, so what the legislation does is really bring that metric to what the reality is, what you see down there. So again, I just wanted the board to be aware of this, it's an overlay. Generally, under the underlying zone, you would have the residential on top of retail. This allows you to forego the retail for that portion of the property when you incentivize it using those incentives set forth in the NFRC.
Right, we're saying.
So what I've seen is that over the years, people who've wanted to renovate these properties have been unable to use this legislation because it's been unclear and inconsistent. And I've seen that it's been very difficult. And you know, the community is rightly upset. You have properties such as the Lutheran Church and others, and that's falling apart. And so we want our town to be vibrant, to not have properties that are falling to pieces because their owners don't know how to utilize this law. Another thing we tried to avoid was the loss of retail space. So that's why we're limiting it to the BR section. We've omitted the BRP from this legislation. We talked in the past on this board, and this was mainly during the 50 North Greeley discussions, about how Greeley Avenue, whether it's South Greeley or North Greeley, are really the areas that are best suited to retail, and especially North Greeley because it's flat and it's very walkable. Whereas the hill going up King Street is not really conducive to people walking and shopping, so that is a better area to have some residential being developed. So, and I also think that the acreage requirements will prevent certain properties from being developed up there. So for instance, the properties in that shopping area where you have the flower shop and King's Scribe are too small for
I
this.
don't know that offhand,
Oh, I thought we had discussed that.
not those
But-
properties. I don't know.
I think there's a larger property behind there that would be able to utilize this. But the point is that we want to retain the viable retail areas and allow for reasonable development so that the town can look better than it does, so that we have more residents to populate the town and go shopping in our shops, and to have a more vibrant, active and lively town. So thank you for that background, Sabrina.
Sure.
Does anyone have any thoughts?
It might help just to kind of talk about what some of the incentives that people can do to get the increased density is. Do you guys wanna just call those out?
Sure, within the code today, you can do apartments that are designated for low or moderate income. You can do specifically apartments that are allocated for senior citizens. Apartments designed for handicapped persons. You can make them rental. You can provide underground parking. You can
Under building, right?
under building parking, sorry. You can do additional recreation facilities. You can increase setbacks for an incentive. You can offer to construct off-site improvements, including neighborhood access roads, drainage facilities and other improvements, and other design features as determined by the planning board. So this permit is a permit that would be issued by the planning board for any particular property.
You know, looking at this and thinking, and we're gonna have a public hearing on 50 North Greeley, I wonder if it would be good to add a category of environmentally sustainable features such as green roofs, rain gardens, and other features that might reduce the impervious surfaces. That could be a good incentive as well. I mean,
That falls
I
under
think-
the category of other design
Right.
features.
it could, but I think that we could be more directive about it. These are incentives, so when you talk about incentives, I think you get into talking about the things we care about. So I think that if we specify that might encourage that sort of construction. More environmentally friendly construction. It was just a thought that we could be more targeted about that.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I'd be interested to know if there's ways that we can build that into the code without leaving it at the discretion to kind of explicitly incentivize that, those practices.
We can add wording into incentive 10, such other special design features or facilities as may be requested, or such other special design features or facilities such as targeted green building practices as may be requested by the planning board.
Well, we don't wanna leave that to the discretion of the planning board. So for instance, senior citizen apartments, other incentives are not really determined by another board. I think that I would like that to be an incentive in and of itself. Maybe we can incorporate that
You can
in item
can-
8, maybe the construction of, no, this is about related off-site improvements.
I think it would be another category.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Of
avoid that,
incentive.
but I think,
Well, if you wanted to create, get rid of 4A, which is model ordinance provisions affordable AFFH units, you
right,
made,
because that is required
you
already
made that a
under the law.
requirement and turned
Right.
that into green building practices.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. We'll see how it actually reads.
Any other comments?
What's gonna happen?
Any
We
thoughts?
pass this. What are people gonna build? What's
I'm
gonna happen?
sorry?
What
are they gonna build?
Yeah, what are we gonna say? What's give people
Townhomes?
townhomes?
You'll most likely see townhomes.
Yeah.
Along King Street.
All on King Street.
Along, not all along, but on select properties, townhomes. There's one property that includes Lutheran Church and behind. That may be the biggest development you'll see. He can apply for the MFRC right now based on the size of the lot. So he yeah, he could have by right 15 units. He could go up to 30 units if he so chooses
With the current law,
with the current law,
okay.
once the coverage issue is solved. You know, but I don't know if he intends to do that because he wants to build something and doesn't wanna go through a lengthy process, so he may come in with 9 townhomes.
Right, I just wanna be clear, if we're making this change, what the educated guess on what we would anticipate would be happening to the town
I think you'll
in the next
probably
5 to 10 years.
see, you will probably see under 15, maybe under 20 units, additional units.
Additional townhouses, additional homes.
No,
Well,
you're talking
if you
about
say
units.
additional, you'll see probably 10 additional units in total,
When you say units, you mean apartments.
or townhomes. Apartments or townhomes, setting aside the one property that's an acre, where I know that they can by right have 15 units. I think with all the small lots of a quarter acre, I don't think that you'll see more than 25 additional units.
Cause that's what I keep trying to do, is when we've been talking about this, I keep just trying to crystal ball it and see what town
You
looks
have to
like.
understand the
schools look like,
calculation,
what the- yeah,
yeah, the calculation for the incentives is based on what they call basic permitted density. Which means there's a calculation based on your lot size, and if it's 10,800, what did we say it was, 10,480 square feet? That's not a lot of land area. by right, you could possibly get 2 units on that with the need to provide stormwater control, the need to provide parking, you have height restrictions. So you're not allowed to do 100% more than what your basic permitted density is. So in that development where you can do by right 2 units, 2 townhome units, you can only get an additional 2 units for a total of 4 units.
And that also is case by case, property by property basis, not all units, all those properties would qualify for that, additional 100% because
Totally.
some may only qualify for maybe a half, one of them, so
Yeah.
maybe you have 2 as of right, but utilizing one of the incentives, and again, given what area you
get
have,
one
maybe you'll
unit,
get
so
only
it's
one additional,
3.
so it's
Sure.
3.
Sure.
I mean, again, we're not talking a lot of units, I hate to always put a guess on it, cause people say Sabrina said only 20 or 25.
I'm not gonna hold you to that, Sabrina. I'm not gonna, but I think what we can do is kind of project of what the town would look like in 5 to 10 years when if this goes through the way we're describing. And I think that's the important step we need to discuss and talk about is what will this look like?
During the whole form-based code conversation, people were very worried about the maximum build out and how many units that would mean. And what people seemed to want in our town was more incremental change. We need to add housing. We need it locally and the state needs it. And the incentivized housing are things that we need also, right? More housing for people with disabilities, more housing for the elderly. So this is sort of taking a piece of legislation that's old, that wasn't workable. People couldn't do the math. They literally couldn't do the math. They couldn't figure it out. It's bringing it to a point where it can be perceived and utilized, and it's also just expanding a little bit from my understanding, just expanding who can make use of it by lowering from 1 acre to a 1/4 acre. It just expands by a little bit. This is very incremental change. And people who live in Newcastle are concerned about the viability of our downtown. We have a task force that's looking at that. It's good to have people there, to frequent the restaurants, cafes, stores, just foot traffic, making it just a more viable downtown. And once Chapline is there, there's just gonna be like a wonderful use of this outdoor space.
Jen, I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying. I just wanna be as clear as we can with everybody about what this means and what it will look like. That's all. I'm not disagreeing. I'm not saying for or against. I'm saying I wanna be clear that I think we're all smart enough, we know enough that we know exactly what is going to happen when this if this passes. And I wanna be clear and open and transparent about that.
Right,
I don't think we can ever say exactly what's going to happen
We
in life. If we're
can't.
passing this, people may decide not to utilize it, someone may decide to increase the size of their house that's there, not necessarily build a townhouse. Someone might decide to, I don't know if they can build an ADU based on that, I have no idea. I think it's a mistake to try to tell people exactly what's going to happen. We can give the parameters of what can happen.
We'll see it on Poly Market then.
Yeah, but
Right?
it's-
We'll put it on
it's
the
a
betting
future.
markets.
It's a statute that's geared toward providing alternative forms of housing, that's what it is. But I will tell you that again, I'm wearing a municipal hat today, but when I'm outside here, I have developers hat too, but I do in other places, right? So I know height's a big deal. It's a very big deal because in communities like Newcastle, where it's fairly developed in terms of your downtown, guys like me, when I look to develop multifamily housing, I always wanna go up, right? Because that's what makes the profitability, that's what makes
You
it.
and I talked about this earlier today.
We did, and again, if I can't go up, it poses a problem for some of my clients because we wanna see multifamily development in other communities and we wanna go higher because you just can't go out, there's just no room. So you just, in terms of just the physical nature of the site, you have to go up, and what you don't have here is that you still have the height restrictions in the code that prevent you from going up. So yes, you may get incrementally additional units here and there, but it's not like it doesn't open, in my opinion, again, just from doing development work, the floodgates of townhomes coming in all up and down King Street, because it's not that kind of statute. It's a little different, that's all.
Unless a developer were to buy multiple properties and combine them,
Sure, that's a different issue, right?
Historically
not-
though,
it's permitted.
it is permitted, but historically that has been a concern for at least the 20 years I've been here. But I haven't been here that long, 14 years. But
20's on the record now.
Round but it's been it has been a concern forever. But I will tell you that everyone's land value is so high that property owners don't wanna pay the prices. Developers don't wanna pay the prices for what's there to make that joining issue. We haven't seen a lot of mergers downtown.
So
Okay,
is there a question that we have to answer tonight or?
well, I was going to suggest that we refer this to the county and to the planning board, but now we've suggested a change. So I don't know if we can
You
agree,
can
if
refer
you
with
can
that change.
Yeah, you refer with the change, let her
Okay, so we can agree on the change sufficiently to do that today. So we can say that one of the
The
incentives
draft,
would
the
be
proposed-
green building technology, green building features.
whether
I wrote that an incentive to incorporate green building practices into the site.
But also I think sustainability of the building once it's there, not just during the building process. Does that capture that?
Yeah, it does.
The new
Oh yeah, that's what I intend, once the
Yeah, I
building's
just
there.
wanted to make sure that the
Green building
phrasing she
practices
said.
include the sustainability
Yeah,
of
okay.
development.
And is it reasonable to be that vague about it?
Yes, cause there's a
There are many
rules out the
green building features.
practices.
And the question for me would be, well, how many and what would be the extent that would
That's up to the developer.
bring that to the threshold
Yeah.
of meeting the requirement?
And that is determined it says 2% for every 1%. So if you do a
Well, we're getting
rain
away
garden-
from that, aren't we? That kind of terminology.
No, we left that terminology in there, you did not want changes to that.
That was the problem from day one. That's in there.
Now I thought we were changing that.
That wasn't what we were directed to do.
So is the math still confusing?
No, the math, it's not the math, it's just the incentives. What we changed was the acreage requirement, right? We changed also the coverage issue and the setbacks. So those were the things that we changed because that was what was, the issues that people were having with it, okay? So you had 50-foot setbacks in the underlying zoning, we made it 0, but as to the incentives themselves, we didn't touch those. The incentives are what they are.
So the previous iteration of this, that we,
We had
That we
several
saw.
previous iterations.
right, you had changed that language.
I did, but you scratched that and went back to
No,
these
what we
basic
scratched was the applicability of the BR, of the MFRC to just the BR.
No,
Those,
So would that language not apply?
that is not in this law.
It's not in this law, but it's possible to put that language back in, is it not?
We could go back and put it in, but it changes all of the incentives. Because you can only have an increase up to 100%.
meaning that, going back to my example, you're allowed 2, you can only get 4 max if you
So
are able to
this
exercise.
math has to either get you to 100% depending on how much you do or not.
So what has changed in the incentive to
Nothing.
make the math not work?
The math works, it's a formula, we've developed a spreadsheet to provide to applicants so that it's consistent and they can calculate based on the calculations of what this is calling for.
And in the previous version where you
In
changed
the previous
these numbers.
version, we condensed and had 4 incentives for 25% increase,
That was scrapped.
and you scrapped it.
Okay, well, we scrapped it in my mind because it was too widespread, the applicability was too widespread and it included North and South Greeley Avenues and we didn't wanna get rid of obviously the retail, so that in my mind was the reason for stopping what we were doing and revisiting this.
And so on the revisiting it, you did not ask for the incentives to be changed.
Okay, because I thought that was a given and we were only changing
No.
what the where the MFRC applies. So are we then not back to the same problem?
We
With a lack of
figured
clarity.
out we figured out a way to clarify the incentive calculations, working with Jeff Gaspar. We resolved that using an Excel spreadsheet that we would provide to applicants who are interested in this, and we can manage it.
Okay, so you're telling me that the law as written will be clear to applicants.
Yes,
You
it
can
will.
make it clear to them,
We can
because
make
that's
it
all that
clear.
matters to me.
Yep.
You know, I don't have a set view of how these numbers should be laid out, this is not my expertise. I just wanna know that applicants will have a clear path forward to be able to use these
Yes,
incentives.
we will give them
That's all I care
tools.
about.
We will give them tools so that there is consistency among all applicants to take advantage of the incentives.
Okay, that's good, okay. Because that was the original problem and
That
that's
was
what,
one of the original problems.
one of the big original problems.
Yes.
Alright. Okay, so this is sufficient now to refer this law to the county and
As you amended,
as
As amended
amended
with the change, correct.
and does it go to the planning board at the same time or do we
Yes.
wait?
Correct, no, it goes, you refer to the planning board for their comment.
Okay, so I would like that to happen. No one has any objections to the amended language? No?
Just direct staff to do that, we'll
Okay.
take care of the GML and we'll take care of the referral to the planning board once we revise the law.
Okay. We would like that to happen, so great, thank you. Alright. Okay, so now we can move on to administrative items. Go ahead, Rob. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, Rob.
Did you wanna clarify once it's submitted, then we can open it up for a public comment period?
I think we have to wait.
Right, you'll set a public hearing at that point, once we get it back from the county, once the planning board comes back, then we'll schedule a public hearing.
Just wanted to clarify
Right, that's what we'll do, but we
that there will
can't.
be a comment period.
Oh, yeah.
There will be, oh, absolutely, thank
No,
you
I
for
know
mentioning
that, but for those not
Yeah.
watching, or for those watching and not,
Yes, we're not going to just pass the law after that, there will definitely be a public hearing, just like we do for every code amendment or new legislation. Okay, Rob, go ahead with the administrative items.
Okay, we have two retroactive payment of claims, one from April 24th, one from May 1st. We have a police radio purchase for one police car, total is $7,508, it's off New York State contract. We have the IMA with Westchester County for the youth development program for our youth police officer. We receive $5,000 a year from the county for that program. We have the police car computer purchase. We're purchasing two computers for two new vehicles. Total cost of $13,627 from Advanced Electronic Design. That's based on that being the sole source provider of those computers. We have the DPW 2025-03 water maintenance materials contract extension from ShareCorp. That's for the product sewer solvent. That extension runs through May 31st of 2027. There was no increase over 2026. We're looking for authorization to set the public hearing on the townwide speed reduction, looking to set that for June 9th. We have authorization to solicit bids for the 9/11 memorial. Those bid specs were prepared in-house by Terry Rowe and Jeff Gaspar. We have the authorization to solicit bids for the New Stat Lane culvert replacement or failing culvert of New Stat Lane. We have the authorization to extend the Millwood Water Treatment Plant HVAC contract with Kerry and Walsh. It's a 3.4% increase over prior year, total cost annually $10,184. We have the authorization to utilize the CCSD painting services bid. It's an hourly bid and they encompass quite a few different services they provide. The first, we're looking for authorization to repair metal doors at the DPW shop, recycling center and the community center. The company is HG Painting. Total cost for that is $23,759. We are looking for authorization to use the same bid for painting of the cinder block walls, $26,192. We have the authorization for use of town property for Camp Navy, to use the train station for drop off and pickup over the summer. We've had this agreement with them the last couple of years. And final administrative item, approval of the town administrator contract. I assume that means you're keeping me around for a little bit longer.
We will be doing that. Yes.
That's it.
Okay, thank you, Rob. That's a good way to end our session. I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn the work session and enter the town board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
God, that would have been very awkward if that contract was meant for someone else.
All right, any announcements?
No.
No announcements. Supervisors report.
Christina has one.
Christina, okay.
I'm sorry. I should have pointed out earlier. It is time to renew all train station parking permits. The new year will begin on June 15th, but we are selling permits now, so please come in or go online or mail them in.
Renew your parking permit.
Yes, renew your train station parking permit. Thank you.
I wanna get these on auto renew.
Okay, for the supervisors report, I'll defer most of that to the town newsletter. I do wanna talk about some events coming up. We have on June 6th, which is a Saturday, we have the Pride flag raising in front of Town Hall for Pride Month. June 13th is the gallery public mural reveal under the bridge. This is the second or the third reveal event. So far, we have 4 murals sponsored by the Arts and Culture Committee with board liaison Jen Klein. We're so grateful to the committee for bringing public art to our town and making it beautiful. So we have 4 more murals to do on the other side, and they've got the murals in the works. They've got 2 being painted by, I believe, community members and 2 by students. Jen, do you have any other details to add? It's gonna be at 11:30. This is a Saturday.
11:30 to 1 on June 13th. And we're very excited, the murals are underway. We've got sneak peeks going on, the artists are really excited. The 2 reveals we've had so far have been such great events, and I really hope that people show up and look at the art that's being produced.
It's really beautiful and a lot of fun. Does anyone have any events that they would like to mention?
No.
Eric, you always have you have a good memory and
Farmers Market's back. We had our first
It
Farmers
is,
Market
it
back.
is.
It was phenomenal. Very excited to have Farmers Market back.
yes, very good. And we have the Newcastle Fire Department annual inspection
That's right.
on Sunday at 10 a.m. Okay, great. Rob, in your town admin report, will you mention the Memorial Day?
I can mention the,
Right.
I can
Okay.
mention the Memorial Day
Go
parade.
ahead.
That's obviously
Yeah.
on Memorial Day. It kicks off up at is it Victory Corner, we call it up there? And then we'll proceed down, the parade will start at Ridgewood Terrace and proceed down King Street down to the train station. Ceremony will follow, We'll get the flyer out for that in the newsletter this week.
Yes, and the ceremony will be at, is it 10:30? Well, I don't wanna
guess
give the
whatever
wrong
time
time.
it takes to mark, yeah.
Yeah, but there's a,
Yeah, I
There's a
think
definite start
Victory
time. Do we
Corners
have
is 9:30. Is it 10? Yeah, I thought Victory Corner was 9:30 and step off at 10. I think we'll confirm that.
okay, it will be in the
It'll
newsletter
be in the newsletter,
next
yeah.
week,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah,
I mean, this week.
this week, yep.
No.
A couple items to point out, we're observing Police Week this week. Annually, there's a year that we recognize police officers. There's a display out in the lobby with officers that were lost, fortunately, no Newcastle officers, but officers that have been lost around the country over the last year. And every other year, we have a ceremony, this will be tomorrow at 4 p.m. here, we're honoring our police officers that are receiving commendations. We'll call them out tomorrow in the ceremony. I did want to touch base one item that was in the newsletter last week, we'll continue it this week, mentions the county septic system rehabilitation and sewer connection program. So this is a program the county has offered funding for septic systems that are failing. A couple of the guidelines that you have to meet. The property should be located within the New York City watershed. The septic system is failing or soon to be failing, and the combined volume capacity of the septic tanks is 1,250 gallons or less. The program may also be available to small business owners within a watershed that have 20 employees or fewer and an average annual gross revenue over 3 years of less than $250,000. So there is an online form you can fill out. The website, again, there's a link on in our newsletter. I'll keep it this week. The website is planning.westchestercountyny.gov. You can go there and fill out the online form there if you qualify for this.
Just to repeat it back, you go to the website, you fill in your information, they might pay for your septic tank. Prepared.
Yep, correct.
Phenomenal. Shout out to Westchester County, Ken Jenkins, I love this. This is great.
Yes, but you have to be in the watershed.
I'm not
East of
promising
Hudson
everyone's getting their
watershed.
septic tanks fixed.
Yeah, it,
Walk that back
Yeah.
real quick.
Yes, let's be clear. But this is a fantastic local thing that I think not a lot of people know about. And so thank you for putting it in the newsletter, and I encourage everyone in the watershed to check it out.
the link that was in the newsletter too, it has the actual local, there's a map, that Sabrina, thank you, prepared for us, of the watershed within the town of Newcastle that would apply, so you can see that on the link.
Well, thank you so much.
And the last I wanna report, town has got the help wanted sign out, we're looking for a part-time code enforcement officer for our to enforce our leaf blower program, so the job posting is up on our website. We've distributed to a couple of trade groups through Tom DePolar, building inspector, so hoping to get some bites.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
That's it.
That brings us to our public comment period. We have 2 public hearings. This is not for the public hearings, this is regular public comment for any new business or other issues other than 50 North Greeley and the other public hearing we have on ethics code. So this is just regular public comment. Anyone with a public comment, please feel free to come up to the microphone.
I need a job, I'll take that code. Can I make a comment about the King Street?
Yes, so please, we know you, Chuck, but please introduce yourself
Yes, this
and
is Charles
your
Knapp.
residence.
Charles Napoli, a resident, elder.
Yes, you're free to make a comment on anything you like, anything you've heard us
I,
discuss, so.
I'm only making one quick comment about the King Street Hill. And the multifamily resident code, it's not an apartment building, it's a residential building with a front door and a mailbox, and it was intended to be on a very, very large piece of property. by law, we were asked to implement a multifamily residence code. We have one in Chappaqua, we have one in Millwood. And basically it's you're putting a house on a piece of land, and the size of the house determines the piece of land you're putting it on. And if you're putting a 3-bedroom house with a front door, garages and all that other stuff on a piece of land, the code requires 6,600 square feet of space. I didn't hear anybody changing that. I heard you say coverage is not important in the business zone. I keep hearing about an overlay. Well, it's not an overlay, it's a code that you can place in the business district if you had the proper amount of land. Now, I do believe that, and here's my only comment, if we reduce the 1 acre that establishes a density, an open space, recreation space, lawns, backyard, front yard, if we reduce that to a 1/4 acre, I think every single property on the King Street Hill would qualify for front doors, backyards, side yards, three bedrooms, and you could end up with the exact same picture of the form-based code where every property puts a couple of townhouses on it, 3 stories high, and actually with the side of the hill, they end up being 4 because you can't, well anyway, I don't wanna go there. But technically, every property is qualified to put one of these units on there. Not a bad idea. It is residential and all of them are houses anyway, so it would look great to have more residential. The idea of sticking them side by side kind of feels more urban rather than summer village or cottagey or residential neighborhood. It becomes more of a urban setting if everybody went and did it on a 1/4 acre. And you're allowing every property owner to do the same thing, put something on there. Now, the incentives always was a problem. I don't know why it still isn't a problem. It seems to be okay now, but if you go to behind the Walgreens and you see Chappaqua Commons, that is a example of the multifamily Chappaqua residential code. And they have a 50-foot setback, and that setback was also a pond where it captured all of the runoff. They got incentives for that. If you notice, it had solar panels on it. They got incentives for that. If you notice those stacks, they were wood burning stoves in there. They got incentives for that. And they also had some rentals. They got incentives, and they put all their parking in. That is multifamily residence Chappaqua, the prime example of it on an acre. Now, compressing all of the metrics of the intent of multifamily Chappaqua code being not a densely constructed property, and putting that up and down the King Street Hill by allowing a 1/4 acre, I think that's a problem. And I feel that we should look at what is possible if everybody decided to develop their property. I loved what you said before. We could take the houses that are already there, houses, residential looking, they always were. We somehow turned them into businesses with offices on the top. What if they were houses? What if we just said they could be houses? And I acknowledge that the retail goes away. What also goes away is a big giant parking lot that you don't need anymore. Perfect for another little dwelling back there. Or maybe, maybe a little 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom studio. So there's ways of working the code to get what you want, but to gerrymander or jury rig a code that was designed to have low density residential character on an acre minimum, I think is gonna lead us down a path of not what we're looking for. It might be good for developers or property owners, but I think we're on a slippery slope by allowing everybody to be able to do it and have no restriction on size. So that's, I'm done with that. Is there any, we'll save the other one for later, North Greeley?
Yes,
Thank
that's during the public
Thank you
hearing.
for letting me talk about that.
Sure.
But just to let you know, I've been here a long time. I and I'm really very familiar with the hill. It's three hills. There's the hill that you go up, but then there's a hill on this side that you have to do anything in, you have to carve out a bunch of dirt to put parking lots in. And then there's this hill on the other side that has a 4-story facade in the back as the hill goes down. And so it's three hills and it's really, really tricky to do anything on it, especially that needs cars. So I like the idea of getting rid of retail, because that opens up the land for grass, or play space, or another little building that doesn't require a lot of parking like an apartment. Anyway, so I think there's a lot more study that has to be done as to what could be done on the hill, because I've done 40 projects on the hill in the last 54 years, starting at the top and going all the way down. And I'm rather intimate with the topography and the requirements. And I do wanna keep it houses on the hill, not townhouses on the hill.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Joseph Cavalacci. I've been a resident of Chappaqua for over 40 years. One of my buildings in Chappaqua is the Susan Lawrence Building. This is adjacent to 50 North Greeley. Now, in 17 years, we had many storms, torrential rainstorms. And there has never been any water that entered my building. And after these storms, my building, the land, has never had water ponding on it. So I'm just concerned about the runoff from 50 North Greeley onto my property. Like I said, I never had a problem in 17 years on that particular building.
Can let me ask you something, do you want this to be on the record for
Yes, I
the
do.
50? Okay, so I'll ask you to come back and give this exact comment during the public hearing for 50 North Greeley. So right now, this is just general comments that
Alright,
people may
so
have on other matters, so
When-
sorry for the
when-
confusion.
So when is that public hearing now?
Right after this.
Oh, right, oh,
So
okay.
this is just
So I should have
we've got
recorded this.
public comment and then we have the public hearings.
Okay.
So I'm assuming you would want this on the record for the
Yes, I
50
do,
North Greeley
definitely.
public hearing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that is about to come now, but you may even remain standing, but don't do that, we're gonna introduce 50 North Greeley, we may have some other public comments on other matters, and then you can come up and give your comment.
Alright, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Anyone for general public comment that is not part of a public hearing? Okay, anyone online for public comment? I'm sorry, what did you say? No hands are raised? Okay.
One hand raised.
One hand raised, okay, I see Laura Lenahan. Laura, welcome, we're welcome to give your public comment.
Thank you for the welcome. I know I am a regular irritant. First, I would like to say that I am enormously appreciative of the amount of time you all spend working on behalf of the town. As a 24/7 employee for many, many years. I really do appreciate this. With regard to battery energy storage systems, I appreciate the very thoughtful comments that were made by all members of the town board in advance of their vote. But what I want to say that I am incredulous, as I have said before, that it was not an open process by which you examined all of the evidence with regard to the efficacy and safety and I'm losing my words. I just don't understand the town process. I'm a town resident, and all of this is done in secrecy, as far as I'm concerned. What expertise that was referred to by members of the town board when you spoke, that you had consulted, what expertise? Okay, never mind. I've said this before, I'm finished saying it with regard to this particular topic. I want to make one further comment. I have had difficulty gaining access to documents that should be available to the public. And on 3 occasions, I have had to contact you, Vicky, or Rob, to get access to the documents because they have not been posted either on the town website generally or in the packet for the town board meeting. I think that's a problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll just note the documents were posted. It was a question of going through certain links to get them.
Yes,
Okay.
everything was posted on the E-code. It was under the work session agenda, it was the full packet. If you searched E-code under 05/12/2026, it popped up. I was concerned that maybe someone couldn't find it, I popped it into regular agenda.
Everything was posted. Sometimes it's difficult to navigate the website. Yeah, it's, we've had this website for, I don't know, many years, and sometimes it can be a bit of a challenge.
The E-code is the problem, it's not the website.
Yeah, but we're required to put things on the E-code, anyhow, and I will reiterate that we have had almost 3 months of public hearing on BESS, very open process, very extensive and exhaustive, not exhausting, it's been fun, but exhaustive, and so anyhow, are there any other comments online, any for public comment? Okay, so I will close this public comment period and we will turn to, we have 2 public hearings on the agenda. I'd first like to turn to the public hearing on 50 North Greeley. Lino, I want to ask, I know that we're going to give a bit of an introduction on this. I don't know if the applicant would like to say something. Should I let that happen before we open the public hearing?
You're continuing, this public hearing is a continuation from the last meeting, so you continue the public hearing on 50 North Greeley to tonight. I see the applicant's representative is here, so you may wanna ask that applicant to come up to see if there's anything further. And then again, you would open up to the public at that point.
So I open it at that point, okay.
You could take, I would have the applicant come up and then make a motion to open the public hearing, and then open up to public comment.
Okay, so we'll have the applicant, sorry.
Applicant
Just
first.
want- Applicant first, open the public hearing second. Okay. Alright, so at this time, I would like to welcome any representatives from the 50 North Greeley applicant. Please welcome and you might wanna reintroduce your project. This is a continuation of the public hearing. We had a previous one a few weeks ago, so you have the floor. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I wasn't gonna go through the project again this evening. I'll tell you who I am. I'm Mike Finan with the firm Langen Engineering. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant. We were here on March 14th, and we went through a pretty detailed description of the project, which has not changed since you all have seen it previously. We went through the finer details that your consultants and town members have gone through and issued a completeness memo on the project. We've been through a long history, as you know, and we've been through the details of the project from traffic, stormwater, you name it, we've been through it, and I think all those studies have been provided. We're here tonight simply to hear additional public comment, and if so, of your choosing, we'd be happy to respond to anything that we can. And if we can't, we can respond when the time is right in writing or via in person. So that's it from me. I think if you will, you could open up the public hearing from there and we can go from there.
Okay, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything that you, Lena or Sabrina, would like to say before we proceed? Okay, so at this time, I'd like to ask for a
Actually,
motion.
Question. If I have a question that I thought of after we asked our questions last time, can I ask that before we open the public hearing, or should I hold it?
No, you could open it, you can ask it now, so.
Okay. So
It's for me.
yeah, it is. So when we were talking about how you're gonna stage the trucks on the road in the parking area, on the street parking spots. So I was driving down there and looking at cars that were parked there and just kind of imagining, once you do that I don't see how like the big trucks that I'm picturing can actually fit just within those parking spots. Like, are we going to actually lose travel lane when the Jersey barriers are up to stage those trucks?
No, so the Jersey barrier will be set at the edge of those parking spaces as they exist today. Those will be temporarily disabled for the period of construction. The trucks will move in and out that entire swath, so from our side of the property all the way to those parking spaces. Anything that's damaged will be repaired and completely reconstructed.
And those trucks fit in to a standard width of a standard parking place?
Yeah, I think those spaces are about 8 feet wide. If they need to rise up on the curb, they will. And again, if that's damaged, they'll repair all of that. The curbing is gonna be replaced anyway because the curb cuts as they exist today are gonna be eliminated and removed and centralized at the one location we have.
Okay, thank you, cause I was just really having trouble picturing how that was going to work.
Again,
Okay, thank you, Vicky.
Yes, anyone else? Okay, so I'd like to ask for a motion to open the public hearing on the application for special permit for 50 North Greeley Avenue.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the public hearing is now open. Let's see, hang on a second. Christina, there aren't too many people here, so I don't think you'll be able to write down all of the commenters and okay, so please come up for public comment, state your name and your place of residence for the record.
Okay, so my name is Joseph Tavolacci. I've been a resident of Chappaqua for over 40 years. Built many homes in Chappaqua. I own the adjacent property to 50 North Greeley, which is the Susan Lawrence building. I've owned that for over 17 years now. And like I said before, that there have been many storms, torrential rainstorms. And I have never gotten any water to penetrate my building inside. After the rains have calmed down, I would visit my property and there was no ponding of water. And it's just a nice sight there. So what I'm concerned about is that the runoff that is gonna be created from the building next door at 50 North Greeley. So who's ever doing the engineering or whatever, it has to be done right. So I don't want a problem. Alright, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Alright, okay, thank you.
Okay, Anyone else in the audience with public comments? Please introduce yourself and give your place of residence.
I'm Adam Goodfriend. I live in 6 Southview by the high school. I'm a resident of Newcastle and a parent of a first grader at Grafflin Elementary. I want to be clear that I support development and I agree something should happen with that property. My concern is whether the cumulative impact on the school is fully being accounted for as additional housing is approved. What prompted me to look into this more closely was the experience with our current first grade cohort at Grafflin. This year's class size increased significantly, and the district has now confirmed that an additional section is being added for next year because enrollment came in higher than projected. I also reviewed the district's budget materials, which showed that kindergarten and first grade enrollment for the 2025-2026 school year exceeded district-wide projections district-wide. In addition, prior district enrollment capacity analysis modeled future growth scenarios that indicated Grafflin could approach capacity over time under certain development assumptions. At the same time, the district is also expanding programming such as Universal Pre-K, which further underscores the importance of understanding long-term school capacity and enrollment trends as additional housing is considered. Again, I'm not suggesting that one project is solely responsible for enrollment increases, but I do think recent real-world enrollment trends suggest that school impacts may be more significant than originally projected. One thing I would ask the board to consider is whether the assumptions being used for this project are sufficiently enforceable over time. My understanding is that the current proposal relies heavily on the unit mix weighted towards one-bedroom apartments to support lower projected school impact. But I also understand that the mix is not necessarily fixed unless formalized as part of the approval process. I would ask the board to take another look at the school impact assumptions being used for this project in light of recent enrollment trends, particularly at Grafflin Elementary. My questions are, how will the town ensure that the assumptions used to justify the project impact remain accurate over time? Will the proposed unit mix be formally fixed as part of the approval process? And how's the town revisited school impact assumptions in light of recent enrollment trends at Grafflin? That's it.
Thank you. I'd like to answer that if, now the legislation provided the site planning for the building and the unit types are decided already. I mean, it's part of the legislation.
Well, yeah, and plus there was a whole secret process that was done and the neg deck was issued that looked at those figures, and I guess they were based also from the school district numbers themselves.
So that's not up for debate.
Correct.
That we,
Right.
right.
It's already been analyzed under the secret process.
During development of the legislation, the site
That-
plan
that's
that you
what's
see today was examined through the Environmental Quality Review Act. The number of school children was discussed and examined. The applicant was required to use the calculations regarding the number of school children that the Chappaqua Central School District had produced. Use their calculation methodology, and they produced that information, and there was no significant impact from the anticipated number of school children.
Right, and I had also had a personal conversation with the school superintendent who was not concerned, at least a few months ago. So, we're always in touch with the schools and we'll continue to be so.
Regardless of that issue's
Yeah.
already been addressed, so
It's been
it's
addressed.
at your, it's
But
at the board's hands.
in addition to that, I do stay in touch with the school district, so. Okay.
What was that, Adam?
So their projections have been low, they came in 10 under.
You mind saying it in the mic?
I would say that
Sorry, put you on the spot.
their projections have been low. District-wide, they came in for first grade, they were 10 below what they projected. I mean, they projected 10 below what was actual for this year.
Okay,
And for kindergarten, I think there was 7 below. So, you know, there's seems to be an issue there.
okay,
You know, I saw
get it.
class sizes go from 19 last year to 24 this year in the Grafflin first grade.
okay,
So
But they've
that's
added another section, you said?
tied, they will be if the budget gets approved,
right,
from what I understand.
okay, yeah, okay, thanks for letting us know.
But I think we need to look at the capacity. You know, I think that the projection, the whole school district-wide, it came in above projections for this year. So we might wanna relook at where the trends are going,
Okay,
especially as
you.
other developments are now coming into the school.
Anyone else for public comment?
I have a comment, Charles Napoli, I have a comment, and I have an illustration I'd like to show Holly, if you don't mind, and then you all could get a look at it. It's about the staging and what the 80-ton crane looks like, and how it has to lift all of these huge 60 or 70 foot planks off of the truck and then lift them up over the wires and then try to put the thing way back 150 feet towards the railroad station. And I think there's a little bit of a staging issue here of how do they plan on building this thing? And that's the 80-ton crane.
Right.
The way it looks, it has to be pretty far away from the wires to get up and over. So I think maybe the idea would be, is that crane gonna be in the front yard of all the buildings across the street? That's a little,
I've seen it,
you
thank
get
you,
it?
yes, thank you.
Study that. But that's not my main core problem here. It's something that has to be looked into a lot further because the wires have to be buried, obviously, to even begin building this thing and getting the product off of the trucks and onto the property. And it's called reach. I mean, the crane goes up and it has to tip over to drop the load, which is a 60-foot long plank of wood on top of something.
Chuck, please speak.
Sorry. It's a crane and it might be a problem without us being sure that it can be done. But that's not my problem. My problem is the code required a whole building life cycle analysis involving 5 stages of a building's life. It clearly says that raw material extraction, manufacturing, processing, distribution, and transportation and use phase at the end of life, that's disposal and recycling, should precede all special use application approval. Or we risk legal consequences for the applicant's sunk costs. For 43 months, we've been hearing about height, coverage, number of apartments, don't know where they're putting their batteries, but that's a different story. We've been worried about setbacks, we've been worried about, a lot of worry went into subsurface stormwater. Well, all of those things are typical planning board elements. Every planning board, every project, every applicant has to go through that process of looking at those items. Our code, the one that you approved, mandated the use of whole building life cycle analysis methodologies to assess the embodied carbon, not the electric stove or the air conditioning. While I'm thinking about that, where are they putting all of those condensers on the outside for the heat pumps. I mean, you see them everywhere on rooftops and those are those things usually on the side of a building that supply the refrigerant or the hot or cold to heat or cool a space. I'd like to know where they're not putting it on the roof because it's green. And there's also some solar up there that is supplying something, but not the whole building, that's for sure. But anyway, the embodied emissions are the effort and the fossil fuels used to make the components, harvest the components, transport the components, and on the site erect the components, and then evaluate each component for the amount of embodied carbon that it took to get it there. And then even after 40 or 50 or 60 years, when the building is recycled, what energy is used to do that? And that's what whole building life cycle analysis is. And we have it in the code that this building has to perform 25% better in a whole building life cycle analysis than a typical building. But a typical building nowadays has a tremendous energy code. We are very climate friendly, and so we require a very, very tight building. Hardly any energy is being used, fossil fuels or any energy that is being used to heat or cool the space, which leaves a huge amount of embodied carbon to be evaluated. And for 43 months, nobody's really begun to even look at what is the embodied carbon of this project. We all know that it's some heavy timber, but it's a type 5 building, which is a lot of studs and not all heavy timber. But more importantly, the soil. We have a real problem building on 6 feet of fill. And so we're gonna have to take that out. They say 4,000 yards, I mean 200 trucks or something. We're gonna have to take it out and then we're gonna have to put something back. And that's using fossil fuels. I mean, diesel or they're not electric trucks anymore. But the question is, we have not really studied or know the impacts of what the subsurface conditions are costing our climate budget. We really should demand better. We should demand that before anything gets approved, we have some idea that this thing is gonna meet the required code. And please don't decide later on, after it's way too late, that well, we don't have to meet that code anymore, because I've been hearing too much about how great our climate code is. And this whole thing is a special use climate code. And I have to tell you right now, without knowing how it's gonna perform climate-wise, without knowing the whole body life cycle analysis calculations, I say it's not very special yet. And I keep asking, where is the so-called zero that everybody talks about? No, we have not looked at the climate aspects of this code. We've looked at planning board, but we haven't looked at the actual reason the code was created as a climate project, and I haven't heard anything that says we're following it and that we'll meet it. And if we can't meet it, I think we ought to have, I have to tell you, it says in your code that after we give them permission to go ahead, then they'll tell us what it's gonna be. I think I'd like to have an idea before you let them go ahead. Should be some sense that this thing will perform. Don't give me all of the details, because they'll have to figure out 10,000 miles a year on the cars that aren't electric. That all goes into the climate aspect of this project when you look at whole building. And I think what you really need to do is get a broad brush schematic idea of the impact on the climate, if we're so serious about climate. And Holly, there's copies here, I think you make sure Holly gets it.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, please come up. Please don't forget to identify yourself as the residents.
I love the new podium, that's a nice addition to the town board meeting environment. Hi, I'm Victoria Alzapidi, the chair of the Newcastle Conservation Board, and thanks for the opportunity to speak on this application. So members of the Conservation Board had the opportunity on Friday to do a site visit. We thought, why not look and see whether there were any opportunities for conservation. And one would not necessarily think that the case in the more urban part of town. But we kind of recalled back to the streetscape project that some of you were here for when we lost a lot of mature trees and a lot of green space downtown. And there was a large reaction, a lot of response to that. It was dramatic. And there have been new trees planted, but we still don't have that rich, luxurious, mature tree feeling. We do have wonderful things like the Pocket Park, which creates some green space downtown that everyone appreciates and enjoys. And so we kind of looked to the property, 50 North Greeley, to, what is green space? Is there any green space there? And we kind of Dennis showed us the plan, and we appreciated what the applicant did in terms of choosing some native trees. And we kind of looked at the perimeter of the property, where there is some green. A lot of it is invasive plants, but there is some green space. There actually is some wildlife there. There's a rabbit that kind of came on cue and was hopping around. I'd heard about the rabbit before. So there is wildlife living there, and there were, the red-tailed hawk flew over while we were there. There is bird life there. If you go in the morning, in the evening, you hear a lot of songbird activity and some raptors as well. So we think there's an opportunity to make recommendations to build on the applicant's kind of green space plan, again, mostly around the perimeter, and possibly to build on the native trees to do some understory shrub placement and maybe some ground cover, so we have more habitat. We know that the town has taken the Monarch Pledge. We are a tree city and a bee city as well. So here's an opportunity to kind of take minor steps. So we don't think there would be any increase in, kind of the budget in terms of, it really wouldn't be significant change to the plan, but just making it a little bit richer, a little more supportive of habitat downtown, which is precious, and we want to retain as much of it as we can. There are a couple of other things that crossed our mind in terms of the timing of construction. We would ask that, if possible, the construction be done not during nesting season. And we were kind of curious as well, if you think of the Rite Aid building, I don't know, I personally have never been up there, but there may actually be nests up there. There are some trees that there may be nesting in, so we want to be sensitive to any birds or other wildlife who are nesting in any of the existing greenery area, and try to avoid any desecration of any nests or obviously we think about the Migratory Bird Act and not wanting to interfere during nesting season. So we would love the opportunity to, in whatever way you think it's appropriate, whether to put in a memo to you, some suggestions about some understory native shrubs and ground cover that would be both beneficial to pollinators and wildlife and birds, but also be beautiful, right? So there's so many studies now that we're hearing about, especially recently, that the more green space, the more emotionally beneficial, enjoyable, and we're hoping even on a marketing level, the more beautiful it is for people and their families to kind of see green in this little more urban setting would be a win-win for whoever's been, for the developer, for the landscape architect, for the families who move there, and for wildlife and habitat as well. So yeah, we just wanted to put that out there, that there is a conservation opportunity here that we're hoping to embrace and make some productive and beneficial suggestions, and we're hoping to do that in a memo to you, and we're happy to meet with the developer, with the landscape architect, to kind of see what they might be thinking. Again, we don't think this is dramatic, but maybe some tweaks might be a wonderful addition to their plan. So I'm curious to know when does the public hearing close? In other words, if you close today, will there be a few days when we can kind of prepare a memo that we can submit?
We will not close today, but we need a resolution to take a vote on this project, so that's not going to be today. Depending on comments that we may get between now and written comments, we might close at the next meeting, which will be in 2 weeks. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I don't wanna get ahead of where we are as a board and the questions that will come up and what we wanna get answered, so we're certainly not closing today.
Okay.
If we wanted a memo, how quickly would you guys?
Again, we were just there Friday, we would love an opportunity to kind of share with the rest of the board what the few of us saw and hear their thoughts, and then, so maybe, I mean, if it was 2 weeks, that would definitely be doable, and if it was 1 week, we would make that happen as well.
Okay, yeah, well, so the next public hearing is in 2 weeks.
Okay, perfect, so we'll definitely be able to submit by then, and we may come back with additional public comments. And if the developer has any questions, we're happy to contemplate those before that next meeting so we can be responsive to those as well.
Okay, well, if you send something before the meeting, we can share it with the developer.
Okay, great.
Yeah, okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Interesting ideas, thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience for public comment on 50 North Greeley? Okay, anyone online for public comment? No hands are raised. All right then. So I would like to ask for a motion to continue the public hearing to what is the next meeting, May 26th, is that the date?
Did you want also staff to prepare a resolution or at this point? That's up to the board.
Now, would the resolution incorporate any kind of requests that we would have outside of the legislation?
What do you mean outside of the legislation?
You're tasked with approving special permit and site plan, that's the legislation.
So that's the
Or-
legislation,
Correct.
okay, alright.
The legislation is written.
Oh yeah, I know. So go ahead and prepare the resolution and we'll have the next public hearing on May 26th. May I have a motion to approve the continuance of the public hearing to May 26th?
So moved.
And direct staff to prepare a draft resolution.
And direct staff to prepare a resolution.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ali stepped out, so I guess the minutes will have to reflect that. Okay. Alright, so now I'd like to open a public hearing on revisions to the ethics code. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Good night, everybody.
That's really.
There are currently,
Oh, I didn't know if you needed a motion.
may I have a motion to open the public hearing for revisions to the ethics code?
So moved.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so currently the ethics code contains provisions that that no town officer or employee shall hold any office in a political organization or political party. Town officers also includes committee members, members of our advisory boards, etc. And a number of people who are on our boards also belong to political organizations. It's these are extremely restrictive provisions that I believe, as I'm told, no other towns, so certainly that our council knows of.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it, I don't really see these types of revisions in other places, I've seen, when I was actually revising it, I saw one other that had something similar, but yours is definitely more restrictive than what I've seen, so to your point, Vicky, what we have tonight is a proposed local law that takes and deletes in section 9-11 political solicitations activities, the last 3 sections of that statute, which are the provisions that you were just talking about.
Right.
Takes it out.
And this provision is actually causing a lot of people to be in violation of our code. whoever belongs to a town committee who's part of a political organization would be in violation.
Disqualified, right?
Here, and so it's extremely draconian and
I just had one question. Should town board members be subject to this though? Like, meaning, should you be prohibited from being a chair of a committee, of a political committee, and serve on the town board?
So right now, it states that no town officer or employee shall use town resources for political campaign, and we actually took that provision that says no town officer or employee shall hold any office in a political party or political organization. We took that out because currently you have that right now. No town officer or employee may serve as a committee person of any political party or political organization.
So what I'm saying is, perhaps we and future town board members should be prohibited from doing that. It's more our volunteers that it's problematic.
Right, so that would then require definition, because your definition of town officer and employee, because technically your committee members are all considered town officials, right? So you'd have to change the definition now to make it just elected town board members where this would apply. So so what you have tonight would not accomplish that. You would have to go back and do another draft law that would specifically state that this would apply to elected town board members. Because right now, the definition is of a town officer includes you all, electeds, appointeds, committee members.
I can't imagine anyone having time to serve on the town board and chair one of those committees.
That's not compelling for me. That's not a compelling reason.
Is that,
I do feel like
but wait, this is not talking about sharing, this is about
serving
membership.
I just wanna say that George Latimer, when he was county executive, also served on the Rye Democratic Committee. He was a district leader. So, I mean, you know, at different levels of government and elected officials, they do that. So I don't know why we would single ourselves out.
Yeah, I mean, Ally, in all seriousness, I really I feel confident that anyone who's signing up to do this job is not gonna put themselves in a place where they're gonna be compromising or having any sort of a conflict. And if so, if it ever does come to that, we have an ethics board that's there just for that. So what I'm saying is I have a lot of confidence in the volunteers for our community, for this not to be an issue that we need to legislate.
You know, do other towns you work with, am I allowed to ask that?
Sure.
Are there other towns that have a similar, like, you know, Jen referenced George Latimer, so Rye obviously doesn't.
Most of them do not have this type of provision. Again, I looked at, I saw one other, and again, I'm not gonna state which one, but this is probably most restrictive I've ever seen in terms of, right, because again, you should be disqualified from serving on a committee if you weren't a political party or a committee person, right?
I mean, what are the risks? I'm not sure I understand what the risks.
Listen, under Article 18, there are conflict rules, and again, if there was ever that situation, it would be incumbent upon that person to say, listen, I may have a conflict, because the rule is it's not actual conflict, it's the appearance of conflict, and you should probably step back and recuse yourself in your particular position, whether it's an elected or a committee person, and you're sitting up here in whatever capacity, whether it's planning, zoning, or whatever committee, you should probably know well enough if one of your committee, you know, appointments, if you will, would interfere with what you're doing. Again, it doesn't come across that often, but it does happen, but then it's up to that individual board member to make that call. Or up to me as town council, say, wait a minute, there's a problem here, maybe highlight it for you all. But again, these provisions are really unique
For Newcastle.
Yeah.
It's extremely restrictive, I mean, so you wouldn't be able to be a member of any political organization, not necessarily a local one pertaining to this town.
Not only that,
I know
even
that I'm a member of the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus. Now, am I in violation? And I would find that extremely restrictive and offensive to have to resign because we have a code here
Well, we
that
currently
is
do.
very
So if we currently
It's
do.
not membership,
we have found
it's
that
serving
many,
as an
many
officer.
people know a committee person.
But
That
Vicky,
doesn't
should
mean
we
an
limit that?
officer.
Should-
No, but
Right, I mean, that's a great example of why it's restrictive
and
and
we
we should
all,
strike it
when we
down.
talked about it, we all named how many people that we know that are wonderful volunteers on various committees that are also in violation, right? We all
Right.
agreed it
So
was so
what-
silly.
what is, so I'm not understanding
Right.
what the objection is.
No, it's not an objection, it was more of like a thought.
Right,
Do we
no, I
want
get
to,
it.
What does committee person on a political party or political organization mean?
That you're someone who belongs to a committee.
So
It's
would
not
that also
necessarily
mean
an officer.
if you're registered with a particular political party, would that then make you a member of that
Right, if you're a
committee?
registered Democrat or a
I think
registered
it-
Republican, aren't
But that's not being a committee member.
But it is, cause it's called the Democratic National Committee. So I mean, I
Yeah, it says you're getting rid of that, no town officer or employee shall hold any office in a political party or political organization.
yeah, so like right now, as
Right,
this is
it's-
written, we're all.
You're all you're all
But yeah,
it's
they're
not
very-
registered
there is
voter.
no-
It doesn't say registered, right.
I think this is a no-brainer.
When you're registered, you are a member of that committee, you get the flyers, like.
Guys, this is a no-brainer, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I
And the
just to
current
illustrate
legislation
it,
also prohibits you from, on section G that you're looking to delete, it also states that nothing contained herein shall prevent
Right.
town officers and employees who, as of the effective date of the code of ethics, currently serve as committee persons who currently hold an office, from continuing to do so, provided that shall be prohibited from seeking additional or different positions following the expiration of the current term. So you can't even, you're prohibited from even seeking additional terms or office.
Thank goodness for Lee now.
Well,
Yep.
not
Can we
me.
just decide this? I mean, this is.
Yeah, it's fine.
come on.
It's so
It's
silly.
it's extremely restrictive and I don't really see the purpose.
So I
No
mean-
other municipality, probably except one, has this, and I'm not even sure if that one is as draconian as this.
Or
It
if
it
we
makes
would
all
want-
of us in
Or we
violation.
would wanna
Yeah.
follow, or if we would wanna
Um,
follow their suit, just because there is one doesn't mean we necessarily
Right.
wanna
I
follow
think
it.
I think this goes under the category of house cleaning, you
Yeah.
know?
It really
Kind of
does,
straightening
and
up.
considering that so many people are in violation,
So many.
I would
And-
like to,
And
I'd like to
limiting
vote
our
on this
volunteer
today.
pool is a terrible idea.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, that's the other thing is that people, like Victoria, for example, who volunteer their time
Sorry singling you
and
out.
you know, cause you're here and you're still here, you know? I mean, there are just a select number of people who want to volunteer and are that committed and that passionate. And we should not have anything restrictive
Now,
about
dozens and dozens of people are in violation of a code that is extremely draconian and restrictive to our personal freedoms. I mean,
Right,
this
you
is
can
a
argue-
democracy.
If you're a committee person of a political party, you know, what difference does it make, right? If you're doing a job for
It
the town.
shouldn't.
It shouldn't, right, and I kind of have kind of an idea of why you put this in here when you did, but housekeeping, you're cleaning it up, and you can try it, and if you don't like it, you can always go back and change it and maybe modify it, but what you have here now is, again, it really shouldn't matter if you're a political appointee or from a political party or on a committee or Newcastle committee or county committee, shouldn't preclude you from being on a planning board or a zoning board
No, it shouldn't.
at all, and this does.
No, it shouldn't.
I mean, I honestly, I am totally fine with the way it's presented to us in this form. Striking E, F, and G.
Yes,
Okay,
three
so
sections,
this,
yeah.
considering that this is
Yep.
after all a public hearing, I would like to invite anyone in the audience who has a comment on this change to the local law.
I wasn't planning to, but I'm happy to weigh in.
Oh, you are absolutely,
I
absolutely
called out my
free,
name,
it would
Victoria, I
be
mean,
nice to have a comment, there may be someone online as well.
she's gonna tell us why we're wrong, we're gonna regret this.
I really wasn't planning to, but it's an interesting topic. So, yeah, Victoria's meeting. So it's, I mean, we often do find that people who are involved in one thing are involved in, you know, this conglomerate of, you know, interests, and so those do overlap. I mean, like when you were saying, you know, you're part of that group, it makes total sense that you would wanna be part of a group that has, you know, advocacy or interest around that topic. So it just feels so organic, and it's almost against human nature to bifurcate it or separate it out that way. And it feels like not exactly, when you think about the underpinnings, what was going on and why that was put there, there may have been, you know, the rationale to create that law, to go to that extent, feels like it concerns me what the intent there was, and it feels more healthy to go back to a more neutral that will allow people to be themselves and experience the multi-dimensional facets of their interests and concerns.
Thank you for that. Thank you. That was well said.
I agree, Victoria.
Anyone online for public comment? Any hands raised? No hands are raised. Okay.
Close public hearing.
At this time, I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing on this local law.
So moved.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The only question I have is whether we want to include this in the consent agenda. I'm concerned because so many people are in violation.
I'm gonna abstain from this one, just so we're clear. I was a member of a party committee that I resigned from specifically because I took this role. And so I think there's potentially the appearance of conflict. And so for this one, if we want to put a consent agenda, it's fine as long as I'm gonna
Would that be a recusal?
a recusal, what did
Yeah,
I say?
you're gonna
What did I
recuse
say?
yourself, right? You
Abstain?
Yeah, which is a no vote.
So that's an
Then I'll
interesting,
recuse.
hang on, this is an interesting question now because when we pass this law, any one of us would be free to then be a member of this type of committee. So then that would mean that we would all have to recuse ourselves
By
by
Eric's
implication.
logic.
Yeah,
By
I'm not sure.
implication, because
I don't
what
under-
if
Yeah, I don't
we-
understand like
What if
why-
we wanted to join a party? What if we wanted to, and I'm a member of an organization now where I'm in violation.
It's just a matter
So
of
I-
timing, Eric. I mean,
I
I did the same
believe-
thing based on this
Jen did the same
part of
thing?
the ethics code. I did the same thing. I stepped down from a political party.
Right, but as legislators now, you have the right to change your mind, you have to
Exactly.
do something
So,
about it.
and we all would have the right, so by this
Right.
logic, we should all recuse ourselves because this actually applies to us. So I don't know that your recusal is valid because then it applies to all of us.
I mean, I don't see a conflict or a potential conflict or perception.
I don't,
Perceived.
legally, I don't see an issue, but that's again, whether one of you recuse yourself, that's up to you.
Because Jen is in the same situation or Holly, Ally and I
It's not like
could
you're
be
the
in that
one who authored the
situation.
legislation or said, I want this to happen because I need to do X, Y, and Z. It was a general consensus on the board that you wanted to basically delete those provisions of this legislation, which again is unique to you all, so.
You didn't ask for it, just for the record.
And again, you are legislators, so
Right.
we're allowed to change your laws, that's what you all do.
But also Lino once told us that we're not really entitled to recuse ourselves from voting unless there's a good reason, because we could all just decide to
Yeah, I mean, it's gotta
to
be,
recuse
again,
ourselves.
you can recuse yourself by for the appearance of conflict, doesn't have to be actual conflicts, that's different, but it's really, if it's an appearance, then you recuse yourself, right, and you state the reason why. This one I don't see,
But there's an appearance for all of us.
well, yeah, then you can't vote,
Like
then-
I'm part of an organization now where if this law remains on the books, I'll have to quit.
right, so but here's how this
And
works,
so how is it that I wouldn't then recuse myself?
So here's
from
how
this.
that would work, if you all decide to recuse yourself, then nothing happens, or
Right,
or if some of you wanted to do it, there's something called the rule of necessity, if you wanna take no action, okay, then the conflict is waived for the purpose of you voting, so, what I'm saying is, it's a piece of legislation, I don't think, it's a different thing, let's say you had a land use project and you're changing legislation and you're involved in that project, then that's legit, right? This, I don't see any conflict among either one of you for voting on this legislation, I just don't see it. Again, if I'm an applicant proposing a zone change, right, and maybe it's in your neighborhood or it's close to you, then I say, you know what, maybe Eric, you should recuse yourself because this zone change pertains to your property or adjacent to a development that's gonna change the zoning and maybe you don't wanna deal with that, different story, you shouldn't be voting on that. But something like this, I don't see an issue.
yeah, you're no differently situated from other members of this board.
Correct.
In fact, the board that passed that law was in violation of that law when they passed
I
it.
won't get into that.
So
Yes.
it's ridiculous.
Okay,
Could we push it to next meeting?
What?
Could we push it to next meeting?
That's up to you, I mean, you can do a roll call, you can vote on it right now if you want to.
Yeah, we could.
You can make a
It's 4
motion.
to 1.
Just make a motion and do a roll call. It's up to you.
Move on.
Oh, Eric, if it makes
kinda wanna
Eric
get it done.
that uncomfortable, I'm open to it, but I
wanna get
would
it
really
done.
have this, I would really like, we've been talking about this since I joined the board.
okay, well, okay, we'll
fine.
wait for
It's fine.
the next meeting.
It's fine.
If you're really concerned, but I do think that this obviously affects all of us. And what
And every
what
board
we can
before
do.
us.
I'm uncomfortable with this, knowing that I should quit an organization that I'm a part of that has nothing to do with the town. I am uncomfortable. No, you're not, at all. Because I am being considerate of your discomfort, but then I have my own discomfort. Because I'm having a problem right now. And I don't know if any of you are part of other organizations that you're not thinking of.
Other than the
Like-
absurd, if you're registered with a party, I can't think of anything, but I think if I thought hard enough, I might.
I mean, are we part of any gun safety organizations or any of you part of?
Yeah, I mean, I
don't know.
I feel like it's so broad that if I just spend a little more time thinking about it, I'll
You'll
find
find
find it. And I think that's probably true for everybody.
Anybody that cares is gonna, if you care about something, you're gonna be a member of it.
But I'm comfortable giving Eric a little more time to process and feel comfortable. And I don't think anyone's gonna push you in the next 2 weeks, Vicky.
I'm not comfortable. So I'm going to have to tender, now that I know, I will have to tender my resignation because I know that I'm in violation. Okay? I will have to. I am not comfortable
Tender your resignation to
from
the-
my membership of the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus.
Well, can we vote
Because of
tonight
this law
without
and
Eric?
somebody,
Can we vote tonight without Eric? Can we?
Yeah,
Yes,
you need
we
three
have-
votes.
Yes.
Why don't we just do this without Eric then?
Okay,
Someone's gotta make a motion. You made a motion to close the public hearing.
I'm sorry, Eric, but I believe my situation is more serious than your not being comfortable. Because I'm having an issue, so yeah, we should all do what we feel is right.
Absolutely, you should have the right to. Thank you for being on.
Okay, so we did make a motion, we did close the hearing?
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter?
Doesn't
Alright.
What?
I got advice of counsel.
It doesn't matter.
On it,
I'm saying he's good.
And
Good.
also, this is, I'm sorry, this is not just about me. Other people are in violation now and could be brought up on ethics by the ethics
We
committee.
have committee members to think
People-
of too.
A lot. We
Yes.
like I said, we
It's not,
counted.
it's just not, it's not
A lot.
fair.
A lot.
It's not fair to people who are in violation.
Let's just do it.
Alright, so let's
I have no
let's
issue.
move
Yes,
this to
I'll
a
vote.
vote.
Nope,
Great.
no problem.
Okay.
I'm good, Vicky.
So the vote, okay, so the vote will be when we take up the resolutions. Can we add this to would we add a separate resolution or would this be more properly part of the consent agenda? What would you think?
What I would do, I would just, you just close public hearing, you could happy to make the motion now if someone wants to make it, that way it's part of the record, it's closed and done. I mean, that's just, because it's legislation, it's public hearing, you close the public hearing, it just makes it neater just to, someone make a motion if they wanna adopt it.
I move to
Okay.
adopt the revision to the ethics code.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
They all voted in favor.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, that was.
Oh, good, nobody feels
We talked it through, we got it,
That's
we're
good.
good.
Good, good. Rob, is it your, are we up to your?
Well, we've gone
Up to
over.
the
We've
consent
gone to
agenda.
we've gone through the consent agenda and the proposed action will be in the resolutions. Okay, let's get started then. Okay, Eric, do you wanna start us off with the consent agenda items?
Retroactive approval of payment of claims, start there.
Yes.
Alright, I move to retroactively approve the payment of claim.
Wait, what do you
No,
have
here,
there?
consent
Ah.
agenda, this one, sorry.
I move to adopt the items 1 through 11 as listed on the consent agenda.
12.
1 through 12. Yep. I move to adopt the items 1 through 12 as listed on the consent agenda. Read them through.
Second.
There we go.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to retroactively approve the payment of claims in the amount of $386,809.84 listed on the summary AP check register and detail voucher detail reports. Checks were printed and distributed to each claimant listed on Friday, May 1st, 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You wanna take one more?
Sure, I'd love to. I move to retroactively approve the payment of claims in the amount of $483,345.62 listed on the summary AP check register and detail voucher details report. Checks were printed and distributed to each claimant listed on Friday, April 24th, 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I move to adopt a local law entitled Battery Energy Storage System, section 60-430.
Second.
I agree.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to approve the hiring of Alfredo Cantu to the position of fourth grade police officer within the town of Newcastle Police Department at an annual salary of $84,728.39 effective June 22nd, 2026. This appointment is contingent upon the approved resignation and reinstatement from the Westchester County Department of Personnel, medical examinations, and a probationary period of no more than 52 weeks.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
One more.
I move to accept the resignation of Dylan Ruxell from his position of recreation assistant effective Friday, May 8th, 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to authorize the hiring of Sarah Curtin for the position of art assistant at the rate of $30 per hour with an anticipated start date of May 13th, 2026.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. I move to authorize the promotion of David DeSantis to the position of maintenance mechanic repair within the building maintenance unit of the Department of Public Works at the annual salary of $101,098.58. Group 11, step 5. This promotion is subject to a 52-week probationary period.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Jenny, you wanna?
Sure. I move to authorize the posting of and hiring of the position of motor equipment operator in the Department of Public Works Building Maintenance Unit. This position will have an annual salary ranging from $64,320.06 through $88,076.60 and be Group 7, Step 1 through Step 5. Commensurate with years of service in rank. The appointment of this position will be subject to a 52-week probationary period. Funding for this position is within the 2026 adopted budget expenditure line.
Yes.
You can do the number now. Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I move to authorize the posting of and hiring of the position of labor in the Department of Public Works Building Maintenance Unit. This position will have an annual salary ranging from $53,841.35 through $73,940.59 and be Group 2, Step 1 through Step 5, commensurate with years of service in rank. The appointment of this position will be subject to a 52-week probationary period. Funding for this position is within the 2026 adopted budget expenditure line.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to appoint Andrew Wixom as an alternate member of Board of Architecture Review, effective immediately for a term set to expire December 31st, 2027.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are hereby adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.